Now I am just opening presentation. Can you see the screen?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So how to make it full? You got any idea how to make it on the uh, full screen?
So we can watch it full screen,
We,
sir.
we can watch, sir. We can.
You can watch it.
Yes, which
Yes,
causes
sir.
and goes into the estimate.
Okay. So we start with the first of all, I would like to welcome all of you in this class. And you know, this is AZ502 or SSAC or with other names, soil fertility and nutrient management. So today we are going to have lecture on to get knowledge of the literature related to this course. Of course, I have sent you some links for the books. I've also tried to send you some literature by emails. I think many of you have got it.
Sir.
And now, good. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we will see some more literature, some journals, and then I will discuss what we are going to have in different sessions, the topics, some general instructions, and then we will interact problems related to connectivity or course or any issue. So friends, this is the best book for you, Nature and Properties of Soils. I think by now each one of you have the copy of it. Is it?
Yes, yes,
Do you
sir.
have a
Yes, sir.
copy of
Yes,
it?
sir.
Anybody having problem can get it from me once the office is open. And then Handbook of Plant Nutrition, you have it. Soil fertility and nutrient management for soil fertility management for sustainable agriculture. Another book is Plant Nutrition and Soil Fertility Manual. I think you have a copy of this. Marshner's book is also important. Other is Glossary of Soil Science Terms. I think you have a copy of this. You must have downloaded it. And then C.A. Black's book, Soil Fertility Evaluation and Control. Friends, this is a different book where you will find many new topics or interesting topics that are not commonly available in other books. So a copy of this book is available in our central library, IRA library. I also have a copy of it. If you are interested, you can get it photocopied. New editions are not available in the market, but it will cover topics like quantitative agrobiology in detail, Mr. agrobiology, Wilcox agrobiology, and so on. Sorry, friends, I don't know why it is happening. It is. Can you see it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. No, sir.
Okay. So then efficient fertilizer use manual. You just type back to basics in Google. So you'll get this manual, efficient fertilizer use manual. And mineral nutrition of plants by Epstein and Bloom. This is also good book. Uh, then this is book by Indian Society of Agronomy, textbook of plant nutrient management. So friends, this is good book. I recommend it for you because this book contains data from India. The other books are also good, like book by Brady or Haviland, soil fertility and fertilizers. That is also important book. I think I have not listed that here, but that is also good book. But this is having data from India regarding soil fertility and nutrient management. So it covers topic you can see like history of fertility, soil as a living body, and so forth. So you can see this book. I don't know why it is every time in going away. I think this is our first time or first day, and then things will improve. So these are some of the journals. Many times in interviews, people ask you, tell me the journal in the field of soil fertility, in field of agronomy, or in field of soil science. So you can tell some journals, and many times you may be interested to publish your results or publish your papers of your thesis work. So Plant and Soil, Soil Science Society of America Journal, you can remember these names. Indian Journal of Indian Society of Soil Science, Indian Journal of Fertilizers. Actually, this is Indian Journal of Fertilizers, Biology and Fertility of Soils, and so on. And friends, these are the websites where you can get very good literature and easy to remember. You need to remember just soils, fertilizer, agronomy, weed, IPNI, fertilizer, FAI, Delhi, and so on. So these are very standard websites where you can find useful literature. Should I continue?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. You
Yes,
can.
sir.
Is it working? I don't know.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, it is.
And then you will see just we have seen some references and study materials. And then we will study other topics like factors affecting growth of the plants, growth of the crop. And then we will see the overview and importance of soil fertility. Friends, we know soil fertility or nutrient in the soil are also a factor of growth. And this supply of nutrients is part of soil fertility. So we'll see the value of soil fertility and what is soil fertility. And then usually we will also see the status of soil fertility in India. Most of the time we say that fertility of the soil in India is going down. So we will see the causes or reasons why the soil fertility is declining in the country. And then we will also see under different fertility levels, maybe low fertility, maybe medium fertility, maybe high fertility, how the crop responds, how the crop will respond if fertility is low, medium, or high. We'll see that. And then we'll see the quantitative relationship. How is the nutrient supply and how much it is affecting the plant growth? That is quantitative relationship between nutrient supply and plant growth. After that, just we have seen that soil fertility of India is declining. So how to manage it? Because the nutrient status of Indian soils is usually going down. So how we can manage it, how we can restore, how we can maintain, or how we can improve fertility of the soil, we will discuss that one also. Then soil fertility management, role of crop rotations. There are several management options for soil fertility. One option is crop rotations. So we will discuss in detail how crop rotations are important in soil fertility management. Then in brief, we will see the history of soil fertility of the world, history of fertilizers in the world, history of soil fertility in India, followed by history of organic plant nutrition. It is also getting value these days. This organic plant nutrition is also getting important. History of organic plant nutrition, and then we will start plant nutrition. Subject of plant nutrition we will start, where we start with criteria of essentiality of nutrients, classification of essential elements, and factors affecting nutrient availability. And then we will discuss individual nutrient NPK in soil, in fertilizer, and as well as in plant, and also in environment. So we'll discuss this NPK followed by secondary nutrients and iron, manganese, boron. In the last and fourth lecture, we will have zinc, molybdenum, and some beneficial elements. And then topic of discussion will be nutrient use efficiency. And afterwards, INM, integrated nutrient management. In INM, except fertilizer, there are many other sources like organic manures. We will discuss classification of organic manures and in detail about farmyard manure, and then compost and composting, green manuring, vermicompost and vermicomposting, followed by concentrated organic manures, biofertilizers, and crop residues. So these are actually all parts of INM. So we'll discuss them individually. And in practical, we will have first exercise on preparation of solutions. Like if somebody asks you to prepare 0.05 molar solution or normal solution of HCl, how to do it. There are many more calculations, and this will be very useful to you, particularly for appearing in PhD examination, entrance examination anywhere. Sometimes questions are there from this section. Then organic matter determination in soil. We'll get theoretical part through the online lecture, and later on, if your lockdown opens, then we'll see can we work in the lab also. Total nitrogen determination in plant samples will be there, one practical, and the fourth practical will be on calculation of fertilizer economics and optimum economic dose of the fertilizer. So I'll take 4 practicals. And finally, I would request you to be present in all the lectures. Maintain the minimum level of attendance for theory and practical separately. I think it is 90%, or you can inquire from your professor. And all the PowerPoint presentation will be provided to you. You will get them. So no need to write every slide, write about every slide. You will get all these presentations. And do not hesitate. You can discuss me. You can stop me in between also if you have any point of discussion. So don't feel shy and don't fear from me. Please, I'm just your friend. So you can ask me anything related to the topic. Then you will be required to make a practical record. It carries mark and also one assignment. Shortly, I will give you one assignment where all the 28 students will write one assignment, and this assignment will be very useful to you. I will discuss later when I give you topics of the assignment. And at last, I would seek your cooperation, kind help, because I'm also new to this online teaching system. So, and also you should attend for whom we are making these presentation, these effort. It is all for you. So this ends my presentation. If you have any point of discussion, anything you want to ask, please feel free and we'll discuss. Yeah, Amla.
Yes, sir.
Any point you want to ask?
No, sir.
No, sir. Okay, I'll start my presentation. Uh, so friends, now we start the topic, factors affecting plant growth. This is very important topic we are going to cover today. So when you finish this lecture, after you attend this lecture, you will be able to explain the meaning of plant growth. Means, first of all, we'll discuss what is plant growth. And then we will know the factors, classification of the factors that affect the plant growth and how they interact. I will discuss in detail how these different factors of growth interact with each other. And then we will see one by one how these different growth factors affect the plant growth and also why the plant growth is important. That is also a question to be answered. And we learn uh, the management of certain factors under field conditions. All the factors which control the growth cannot be managed by the grower, cannot managed by the farmers. But up to some extent, some factors, some growth factors can be modified by the grower or by the farmers. So we'll see that how we can modify certain factors. So let us first of all see what is plant growth. A permanent and irreversible change in size and volume of a living structure with an accompanied increase in dry weight is your growth. Do you understand this? Plant
Yes,
growth,
sir.
Yes,
permanent
sir.
and irreversible change in size, maybe change in the size, increase in size, or increase in volume may be there, but that should always be accomplished by the increase in dry weight. If dry weight is not increasing, that means it is not growth. Sometimes a cell or a plant part may swell by storing extra water. Volume is increasing, but growth is not there because there may not be change or increase in dry matter. So dry matter is very important part of growth. Is it clear, this growth?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, now we see that how these factors are important. Why there is need to study these growth factors? Because our yield depends upon growth. Yield depend upon growth. If plants are not having sufficient growth or optimum growth, then they cannot give you better yield. You need certain or minimum amount of source. You understand source and sinks. Source are mostly your photosynthesis that are available in the leaves or some certain cases in the stems of the plant. If there are no sufficient source, if plants are not healthy, if they are not having optimum growth, then they cannot give us the yield. They cannot give us the a good yield. If the growth is low, there is no leaf area, there are very less number of leaves on the plant. If it is a tilling plant, then there are very few tillers. So if growth is not there, then it cannot give you higher yields. Similarly, if we do not get good yields, then returns will be affected. Farmers will get less return or less benefit from the factors he has used. So in this case, these factors can manipulate the growth. Factors can easily manipulate the growth. Of course, there are certain natural factors that are beyond the control of the farmer, but there are many factors which a farmer can control and manipulate the growth. So simply I can suggest you that whatever factors are affecting the growth of the plant, the same factors will affect the yield. Do you agree to it?
Yes, sir.
Factors which are affecting the growth. Finally, because this growth will influence the yield, so same factors will work for the yield. And if I ask you these factors in distribution, distribution of the crops or distribution of the plant, then I think almost same factors will affect the distribution of the crops also. Many times in your syllabus, you find factors affecting distribution, productivity, and production of the crops or of the plants. So answer remains same, almost same factors, only the explanation will change, but factors will remain almost same. For example, if I say light and temperature, they are the factors, growth factors. But light and temperatures are influenced by latitude, longitude, altitude, and so on. So if we deal with distribution, instead of this, we can write latitude of the place, altitude of the place, and so on that affect your distribution. So almost similar factors affect your distribution, your growth, your productivity, or your yield. And not only this, these factors, if you understand meaning of the factor, factor means anything which is influencing the outcome of the other. The cause, the reason of influence is your factor. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Hello? Can
Yes,
you
sir.
hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So in economics, for example, in economics, if you talk of factors of production, so they say it is land, labor, capital, and management. In land, they include anything which is natural. So far economics is concerned. For example, it will include your soil, water, light, your wildlife, etc. They are actually lands for the economist. And then labor, you understand, capital, you understand. Capital is the money in hand, cash in hand, capital, and then management. So these are the four factors in economics which affect the production. For them, production may be different. For us, production is crop production. For them, it may be production of goods, production of variety of industrial products, and so on. Coming to agriculture, if we see in agriculture, the same factors are divided differently. We say natural resources. What are natural resources? These are actually natural factors of distribution and production. So these natural factors are, or natural resources are, instead of land, now we'll call it soil. Is it clear? Soil, water, air, your forest, and wildlife. These are our natural resources. Part two is your artificial resources, or you can call them which are manipulated or managed by human beings. Those are your artificial factors. It may include your money, this labor, it may include your farm implements and other seed and etc. Fertilizers, they are artificial factors. So this is how we can divide these factors. Now we will see that the yield, you see the yield is dependent upon interaction of genotype and environment. So environment is very, very important. Interaction, environment and genotype interaction is very, very important. We will see it later. For example, genotype, maybe some varieties, environment, maybe some fertilizer. So this fertilizer and varieties will always have some interaction. Some varieties would like to have less fertilizer. Some variety would like to have more fertilizer. So kind of interaction happens in growth factors, which influence the growth. If you supply more nutrients to the plant which need less nutrient, then its growth will be adversely affected. Other way around, if you have a plant which requires more and more nutrients or larger amount of nutrients, if we give less dose of nutrients, its productivity or growth will be adversely affected. So we need to optimize the level of these factors so that we get the best yield. And friends, it is not just one factor. There are so many factors which influence the yield and growth. And many of the factors are interactive. They interact with each other. I'll show you how these factors are interacting with each other. Now, this some people have said, Havlin had said that there are about 52 factors. See the number of factors, they are very large. And growers or farmers can control 45 factors, which must operate in unison, means together, to achieve higher yields as they are interrelated. And farmers can manage 7 factors, that is temperature, sunlight, violent storms, flooding, rainfall, carbon dioxide, altitude, etc. Growers can, however, modify rainfall and CO2 also. Are you enjoying it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Say
Yes,
yes, sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Or do you feel sleepy?
No, sir.
No,
No,
sir.
sir.
Okay, then it is fine. I need to wake up you in between hours. बिस्तर पे लेट रहे होंगे आप लोग हैं कोई बात नहीं. So now see, different people have proposed a different list of factors. So for example, this person has uh, shown some factors which are important for a crop, yield of a crop, like organic matter, clay concentration, cation exchange capacity. All these are soil related factors. Then after 3, you have light, topography, sunshine, and so many factors are there which influence the growth of the. You don't bother about these lists. Just I will show you classification. This is another way of presenting these factors. So finally, we see, I just compiled all the factors and tried to classify them. There are 2 factors mainly which influence the growth of the plant. Number one is external factor and internal factor. You know, external factors are further divided into 3: environmental factor, management factor, and socio-economic factors. And these environmental factors are further divided into 2: abiotic and biotic. Really, it is very simple classification you can remember. So I think somebody else is controlling this mouse. Another user took now in control of the presentation. So you do it if you are doing it. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Somebody else is controlling. If you are controlling, control it so that my job becomes easier. So let us concentrate on internal or genetic factors. First, we will see that. And do you know the environment, friends? Can anybody tell me what is environment? Please come forward. Any one of you can come.
Physical surrounding of any
Object.
thing.
Just speak loudly, please.
The surrounding of any organism is called the surrounding.
Good. Environment means your outer space, your surroundings, or the you see somebody dwelling house where one is staying. The surrounding around that place is your environment. So in environment, you see you got 2 factors, means outside factors. One is abiotic, other is biotic. So in abiotic, you have wants plus light. Wants W for water, atmosphere, nutrients. Here your supply of nutrients come, temperature and your soil plus light, and then biotic. So you see, water interacts with your atmosphere. Your nutrients interact with the temperature. They can interact with the temperature also. Your temperature can interact with the water and air. So these factors interact with each other, and also these abiotic factors can influence the biotic factor. For example, relative humidity. Relative humidity is an abiotic factor, but it can invite certain insect pests and disease if levels of humidity increase. So then there is interaction of abiotic and biotic factors. And even within biotic factors, one organism will influence the other. There are three kinds of life. One is animal life, other is plant life, and third one is microbial life. So these kind of three lives, they interact with each other within soil and outside the soil also. Outside the soil, you see uh, the competition between the plants. If you have intercropping system, mixed cropping system, in that different biotic components compete with each other. Similarly, allelopathy, antibiosis, these are happening in soil. One organism is influencing the other. Certain chemicals are released by the plant roots that may attract some microbes around it. And then multiplication of microbes happens. Some of the microbes are good, some are bad. They also fight with each other by having antibiosis or by secreting some antibiotics into the soil. So lot of interactions happen. And you also know biotic interaction, some rhizobium association, some, this azoospermum around the roots of cereal plants, it is attracted, and your nematode and bacteria, all sorts of interactions are there in the soil. So these factors are very, very important. We'll discuss in detail. So now let us see how this genetics affect the growth. You see, if you have 10 or 20 varieties of a crop, the growth of many of the varieties will be different. In some cases, growth will be fast, and then in lesser time, they do the growth. Some variety may do it in longer time. Some variety may produce more tillers. Some variety may produce less leaves, and so on. So these are genetically controlled factors. For example, a hybrid variety of rice or any crop is generally producing more biomass than the traditional varieties or conventional varieties. So this genetic also control the growth. For example, elephant. Genes of elephants are different from the ants. So therefore, elephant is very big and the ant is very small. So up to some extent, growth is also controlled by the genetics. If you give food equal to the elephant to the ant, it will not grow into elephant. It will remain an ant. So these genetics affect the growth of the crops. Genetics means here the genes. For example, C3 and C4 plants. In C4 plants, the growth is generally, our crop plants, the growth is generally more in C4 plants than in C3 plants. Do you agree to it? Because photosynthesis, this light use efficiency is high in C4 plants. And C3 plant, generally, exceptions may be there. And your water use efficiency is also high in C4 plants than in C3 plants. Similarly, a variety which is high yielding, generally its growth is high. Early maturity variety, yes. Hello,
Hello, sir.
can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
all
sir.
are joining.
Yes,
Then,
sir.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
yes, sir.
okay, this is fine. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
So early maturing variety generally has less growth than the late maturing variety. How many of you have seen pigeon pea plant? Have you seen the pigeon pea plant? Arhar ka poda.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So there are 3 or
Sir.
4
Yes, sir.
classes of varieties in pigeon pea. Very early maturing variety which mature in 110 days. Early maturing variety 120, 130 days. And then medium maturing variety, late maturing variety which mature in 8 or 9 months. So can you visualize the varieties which are maturing late? They are having more growth, vigorous growth than the early maturing variety. The individual plant has much more growth in late maturing varieties than in early maturing. So this growth also depends upon the duration. Resistance to lodging. The varieties which are not resistant to lodge in cereals particularly. So their growth is affected. If lodging occurs in early stages, so their growth is affected or reduced. The varieties which are lodging resistant, their growth should be better than the varieties which have tendency to lodge. Similarly, adverse conditions. If a variety can tolerate adverse conditions like drought, salinity, etc., or insect pests and disease, then its growth will be better than the variety which are susceptible to these stresses. Means simple, if your varieties are susceptible to biotic and abiotic stresses, their growth is generally lower than the varieties which are resistant to or tolerant to these stresses. Similarly, chemical composition. If a variety is having more of qualitative material, like more protein, more oil, so generally speaking, its growth is generally less than the variety which has less of these substances. You see the plants of oil seed like linseed, they are very small, and plant of maize, because oilseed need to produce more oil. So it's a lot of energy is going into the production of quality material, that is oil. So overall, it depends upon the kind of material or composition of the final output, the economic product. Also, for example, basmati varieties, they are very fine. Their quality is better. They have a smell, aroma, and so on. So in that case, the growth is overall growth or biomass or yield is less compared to other varieties. Therefore, in plant breeding programs, they breed varieties depending upon the fertility condition. This is important. Do you know about wheat varieties? Classification of wheat varieties. Classification of wheat varieties, there are different criteria. Number one is the time of sowing. Time of sowing is one criteria, means for timely sown and late sown. Second criteria is availability of water. For irrigated condition, for rain-fed, for less water conditions, varieties are classified. And also for fertility conditions. If you see the classification of wheat variety which are suitable for irrigated conditions but low fertility, then you will find medium fertility, then high fertility. So now in some crops, breeder are breeding varieties for different soil fertility conditions. If fertility is poor, you can have different variety. If your fertility is medium, means your varieties are having interaction with the soil fertility. If you have more fertility, irrigated condition, you will have quite a different variety than others. You got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then we go to, this was genetic factor or internal factor. Next is your external factor. In this you have environmental factors, which are abiotic and biotic, you remember. So many are interrelated, like soil, air, and moisture. These are actually your abiotic factors. Oxygen and carbon dioxide in soil. If one goes, other comes in. For example, in soil, if your water goes, evaporation happens, then soil will replace the place which was occupied by the water, and vice versa. If your oxygen comes in, CO2 goes out. And similarly, diffusion rate of oxygen to plant roots and soil temperature. Soil temperature affects the diffusion of oxygen within the soil. So many factors are interrelated. Similarly, soil properties. They also affect the growth of the plants, texture, water holding capacity, structure, gas movement. soil organic matter and organism and pH. You can go on adding other soil properties also. For example, soil texture and structure. They influence the water holding capacity of the soil. They also influence the gas movement, this texture and structure. Also, soil structure is important for growth of the organism. The ideal soil structure encourages the growth of microbes and so on. So many of the soil properties are interrelated. Now you would ask me, sir, how this soil texture or structure can affect the plant growth? So what could be the answer? How this texture is important for plant growth? How it can affect the plant growth or
The
structure?
nutrient retention capacity of it.
So one is that texture will affect the nutrient retention. How it will affect?
Sir, fine texture
Water
will
availability.
hold of water.
Okay. Fine texture will hold more water, more nutrients because of higher cation exchange capacity. Good. So just very raw diagram to show you how these factors are interrelated. Just see the extreme left. Okay, can you see the soil air, soil
Yes,
water?
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The soil air and soil water are interrelated, I explained to you, and they affect the soil temperature. They influence the ratio of soil air and soil water. I don't know how will it affect, but it will definitely affect that soil temperature. The amount of water and the proportion of these two will affect the soil temperature. And this soil temperature will affect the mineralization of nutrients from the minerals as well as from the organic matter will be governed by the soil temperature. They will also be influenced by soil air and water. So all these three, soil air, soil water, soil temperature, they are interacting with the soil microbes. And soil microbes, the best moisture, best temperature, best water or air will give the higher microbial activity. And then it will increase the nutrient availability. Finally, this nutrient availability will influence the root growth or plant growth. Better root growth means better plant growth and better yields. So you can explain it. This is just to show you the interrelationship between different factors. And now we go to temperature in detail. Temperature as a factor, it is abiotic factor. In external factor, we have environmental factors, and then environmental factors we have biotic and abiotic factors. So this in abiotic factor, temperature is number one, which the limit of survival is minus 35 to plus 75 degrees Celsius. So this is the survival limit of living organism, including plants. But practical limit of survival is 15 to 40 degrees centigrade. Please remember this value, 15 to 40 degrees centigrade. It is asked in your quiz exams, 15 to 40 degrees centigrade. This is important. Means below 15 degrees, it is kind of base temperature. Below 15 degrees temperature, most of the activities of the plant gets affected or they gets reduced. And same happens above 40 degrees centigrade. This is the ideal range or practical limit of survival of the plants, 15 to 40 degrees centigrade. But this temperature is dynamic. The ideal temperature, the optimum temperature varies with the age of the plant, the growth stage of the plant, the process of development in the plant. All these development processes will require an ideal temperature, which may be different at different stages. So temperature requirement also varies with the species and variety differences. You see, species means certain species like to grow at 15 to 20, maybe ideal temperature for them, like temperate plants. But tropical plants, they like 30 degrees centigrade, 35 degrees centigrade temperature. Similarly, within a group, within a species, you will have find variety differences. Some variety would tolerate the lower limit or higher limit of temperature. For example, now these are the days of climate change. In climate change, people are looking for high temperature tolerant varieties. In case of rice, Nagina 22, it can tolerate temperature up to 45, 46 degrees centigrade. Do you know it? Nagina 22 is means highly tolerant to temperature, tolerant to high temperature. So there may be some varietal differences within each. People are trying to find out wheat genotypes which can remain unaffected by the terminal heat stress. They are doing some breeding work to find varieties which can tolerate higher temperature at the time of maturity. However, normally wheat requires cooler temperature at the time of maturity, but they face higher temperature, then difficulty comes. Duration of exposure is also important. For each species, for each variety, the quantity of temperature is fixed. We'll discuss it later. Age of the plant will also affect this, will decide the optimum temperature and the stage of development. So now question comes, what is the role of temperature? Role of temperature in plants. Why we are studying it as a growth factor? So in your view, why temperature is important to plants? Why temperature is important to plants? What it is doing to the plant? Come forward.
The different enzyme activity.
Good. So it influences or it controls enzyme activity, which are important for synthesis of several organic molecules, like your maybe carbohydrate, maybe your protein, maybe fat, maybe any other constituent. Definitely, you are right that it is important for enzyme. Next.
So different physiological processes are being controlled by temperature.
Okay, good. Next. So I think you got some raw idea that what temperature is doing in the plants. So I can tell you some simple things to remember. Just you divide plant into two. One is below ground, that is root. Other is shoot. So just you concentrate on the shoot. What this shoot is doing. This shoot is doing photosynthesis. It is doing protein synthesis, vitamin synthesis, hormone synthesis. It is doing respiration. So variety of biochemical functions are being done by the top of the plant, the above ground part. So all these activities will be governed by temperature. Is it clear? Or maybe transpiration, maybe evaporation, maybe your respiration, photosynthesis, all these physiological activities and biochemical synthesis are directly governed by the temperature. I think you understand relationship between photosynthesis and temperature, respiration temperature. I need not to go into those kind of details. You must have attended some plant physiology course, basics of plant physiology, something like that. So just we have seen what temperature is doing in the shoot. Now see what it is doing in the root. So in root, it is just helping the plant to take up the water uptake or absorption of water. I think you know role of temperature. Similarly, uptake of the nutrients, translocation of the nutrients in the plant, uptake of the nutrient. Is it clear? Uptake of water, uptake of nutrients, translocation of nutrients governed by temperature. And then how nutrients are reaching the roots of the plant. How nutrients are reaching to the roots of the plant, it is helped by the temperature. That means activity of microbes, activity of the process of decomposition of organic material, the transport of nutrients from one place to another place. So what I mean to say that it is affecting the availability and supply of nutrients to the plant root. Is it clear? Breakdown, availability, and transport of nutrients from the source to the roots, near the root. It is job of the temperature. It governs it. Similarly, moisture percent in soil will also govern it. The water content in soil will also govern it. So these are the major roles played by temperature in nutrient availability, nutrient uptake, water uptake, as well as in the shoot part. So now you can see the role of temperature. It affects water, nutrient uptake, transpiration, respiration, cell wall permeability, microbial activity, nutrient cycling, and flowering and maturity are also temperature controlled phenomena. If you know about thermoperiodism, this influence of temperature on flower or different growth phases of crops. So temperature also affects the organic matter decomposition, microbial growth, pollen viability, seed set development, rate of senescence, maturity, quality. Can anybody explain how this temperature affects quality? Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Is there anyone listening to me?
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Everybody is
Yes,
there?
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
So first you tell me what is quality? Quality with respect to crop. Crop quality. Yes, come forward. Or there are students of agronomy. Do you know crop quality? What is a crop? C-R-O-P, crop. What do you mean by a crop? First you give me this answer.
So specific plants grown on a large area, sir,
A specific plant grown on a large area
for economic purpose.
for economic purpose. Means the crop is a group of plant which has some economic value to the human beings or animals. That is very rightly said. It is a crop. But another dimension of this definition is, see, sometimes you say, please crop the picture, you know, crop the picture. In computers, you usually do it. Cropping the picture means cutting the picture, isn't it? Sometimes you go to a barber shop or salon, you ask to crop your hair, बाल काटना है. So there also you are using crop word. So if you see the more precise meaning of crop means a plant which is harvested and has which is harvested normally when in olden days when this word came, in those days people were harvesting the plants by sickle. So they were cropping it. Cropping means cutting. They were cropping some plants and they named it crop. So anything which is harvested and is brought from the field can be a crop. This is what this definition says, crop. So crop quality. Now what is quality? What is quality? So quality is really definitely very difficult to define. So quality in respect of crop quality, it is some set of characteristics, some set of desirable characteristics which an individual will decide, which an individual will decide is your quality. But normally people take nutritional quality as the quality. Normally people take nutritional quality as the quality. But in other sense, there may be some physical quality also. For example, I sometimes say to the student, for some, the smaller tomato may be of better quality. They may consider that small tomato are better for them in quality. Other will feel that bold tomato are good for me. Somebody would say this red apple is good for me. Somebody will say green apple is good for me. So for some, basmati rice will give better quality. Of course it is, but for some, the kala dhan or black rice may be good. For some, orange rice may be good. So this quality is very subjective. It's not fixed. It varies with the individual. But nutrition quality definitely it is same for all. The nutrient content means richer in oil, richer in protein, or richer in smell or aroma. So those are better quality parameters. They are affected by the taste, the protein content, the oil content. All these parameters are influenced by the temperature. Because temperature control in synthesis of all these quality products or quality constituents. Seed germination is influenced by temperature. I think in your 6th class, in your botany, your teacher must have taught you that for the germination of seed, you need temperature, moisture, and oxygen, and also in some cases, light, isn't it? So temperature is important for germination. Pest and disease occurrence are governed by the temperature. Now you can see this temperature is the abiotic factor, but it is interacting with pest and disease, the biotic factors. Now you see very interesting picture. Very interesting picture. In this picture, on the x-axis, you can see the temperature. On y-axis, it is rate of leaf appearance, leaves per day in maize plant. So you can see as temperature is increasing, say 20, 25 and beyond, the number of leaf appearance is increasing. It's simple. For maize, the growth is more if you go on increasing the temperature. I may say up to 30 or 35, 30 degrees centigrade. So number of more leaves per day are coming if you are increasing the temperature in case of maize. So it is having linear relationship. Then this is how in agronomy, I think when you study a crop, cultivation of crop or production of crop, the teacher teaches you that lowest temperature, highest temperature, and optimum temperature. So optimum temperature, for example, for barley is 18. For most of the winter season crops, it is 15 to 20 degrees centigrade. And for summer season crops or tropical crops, it may be 25 to 30. 25 to 30 for 35 for tropical crops, and for temperate crops or cold season crops, it is 15 to 20. Now you see the temperature requirement of C3 and C4 plants. Just see the C3 plants optimum growth temperature is around 25 degrees centigrade, and for C4 plants the average is mean value is 35. So you can see this for C3 plants, this is the curve. So for them optimum is somewhere here, but for C4 it is much higher optimum temperature for the growth. So it varies with the kind of plant, group of plants. And it can also happen sometimes that plant will face lower temperature. It happens in winter months in northern states of India. You see lower temperature when you have frost or ice formation is there. So how this low temperature affect the plant growth? In the very first slide where I started temperature, I told you several activities are affected by temperature, like uptake of nutrient, respiration, transpiration, photosynthesis. If it goes towards lower side, low temperature, then it will reduce all those physiological functions of the plant. So reduce growth, reduce cell wall permeability, reduce nutrient water uptake, reduce transpiration, reduce photosynthesis, and freezing and chilling injury. So this can happen. So do you know the difference in chilling injury and freezing injury? What is the difference in chilling injury and freezing injury? Are they same or are they different? Sujit? Hello, is
Hello,
somebody
sir.
watching?
Hello,
Yeah.
sir. Both are different, sir.
Okay. What is the difference?
Freezing injury means cells in the tissues are freezed or death in
Good.
freezing injury.
Good. And chilling.
In chilling.
Freezing, you told very right, means it happens in mostly under temperate kind of climate where your water is converted into ice, the cells of the plant, and they burst and they get deformed. It is frost injury. And in chilling injury, actually it happens in subtropical and tropical plants where there is suddenly drop of temperature to the freezing point. And at that point, it affects the growth of the plant by chilling injury. See, normally you say, bring me a glass of chilled water. You don't say, bring me a frigid water or something like that. We call it chilled water. Means before this water was having higher temperature. Say it was having 25 degrees centigrade temperature, which I was supposed to drink. But now I want chilled water, means the same water which was having 25 or more temperature will be brought down to 4 or 5. Then it is chilled water. It is not freezed water. So that is the difference in freezing and chilling injury. So you can see chilling injury, damage to plant parts caused by temperature above the freezing point. It is mostly in tropical, subtropical plants, and leaves may become purple or reddish. How many of you have seen Barsim plant? Barsim plant, Trifolium, Alexandrinum, Egyptian clover, agronomy?
Yes, sir.
Any student has seen Barsim? Have you seen Barsim? How does it
No,
look?
sir.
How does it look? How tall it is? Hello.
The spreading habit, not so much tall, sir.
Mostly semi-prostate or semi-spreading habit. And it is used as a
Fodder crops.
fodder crop. Barsim is a fodder crop. And in winter months, many times you will see their leaves become red. In winter months, if you have observed, in Barsim, you'll find some reddish leaves. Many times people struggle to find the reason, that it is phosphorus deficiency, it is excess of sodium and something like that. But it is because of lower temperature. Many times certain leaves turn to purple or reddish color in Barsim, which is normally due to lower temperature. So see the effect of temperature on the concentration and uptake of the nutrients. Very interesting slide. This is effect of soil temperature on the nutrient concentration in top and root. I can explain you one or two. Just see come to the top, just see the potassium K. Can you see this K? This K, potassium,
Yes, sir.
or you can
Yes,
see
sir.
this, uh, uh, just see this magnesium below this,
Yes, sir.
magnesium. Okay. So here you can see in magnesium, this is, see 5 degrees centigrade means low temperature and 29 degrees centigrade high temperature. This is for the potato crop, and see what happens for magnesium content in percentage in top and root. T for top, R for root. So generally at lower temperature, it is more in top than in root. Similarly, at higher temperature, it is more in top, less in root. But if you compare 5 and 29 degrees centigrade, just within the root, it is more in root at lower temperature than at higher temperature. Root, you got it? And reverse is the case in top at 29 degrees centigrade, magnesium is more, much more than at 5 degrees centigrade in top. So try to interpret these kind of influence of temperature. Means it's simple that temperature is affecting the concentration of nutrients in root and shoot differentially. In root and shoot differentially. I don't know the reason. Some biochemistry or some uptake may be involved in this, or it varies with the nutrient, but such kind of differences do exist because of change in temperature. Now, soil pH is also important, and temperature influences soil pH also. If soil pH is influenced by temperature, then definitely it will influence the nutrient availability as well as nutrient uptake. So temperature can affect the nutrient availability via changes in soil pH. So soil pH increases in winter and decreases in summer. It is quite clear, particularly in areas where you use more of organic matter, more of manures in the soil. So it is because if you add organic matter, microbial activity is more in summer because increasing temperature. In winter months, lower temperature is the limitation for growth of microbes. But in summer, there is no such limitation. And the release of organic acids occur after the decomposition of organic matter in the soil. And these organic acids in summer decrease the soil pH. If soil pH is decreased, that means the nutrient availability will increase in many cases. If it was 8 and if it becomes 7.5 or 7.6, then it will increase the nutrient availability. So decreased pH in summer increases micronutrients availability. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Hello? Okay. Now another effect of temperature is on maturity period of the crop. In agronomy, students, I think most of the time, we study this growing degree days. We call the concept as heat unit or growing degree days, GDD. It is the number of heat units required to bring a crop to maturity. Whatever is there, actually there is fixed number of heat unit that should be received by a plant in its life cycle. If it receives the same heat unit in shorter span, it will mature. If it takes the same heat unit in longer period, because the heat unit per day is less. Just compare the case of wheat. Wheat in India takes how many months? General times on wheat. How many months does it take? Wheat in India. The maturity time of wheat. अमरेश में क्लास ले रहा हूँ अभी थोड़ी देर में क्लास में हूँ मैं अभी बात Yeah. How many months?
5.5 months.
Huh?
5.5 or 6
Yeah,
months.
you are near. Say about 5 months. Average is 5 months. 140 to 150 days are taken by wheat crop. In Europe or America, they call one crop as winter wheat. Winter wheat. Have you heard of winter wheat and spring wheat?
Yes, sir.
So our wheat is spring wheat actually. And winter wheat happens in China, in Europe and in America. So what is winter wheat? Which is sown in winter months in European countries or American countries, and it takes about 10 months time. Can you imagine? Double than the hour duration. And it is actually sown in the month of October. It is sown in the month of October. They just put the seed into the soil, and then the snowfall occurs. The winter occurs after October. And then winter continues up to February. or March. And then the seed will remain dormant inside the soil for about, say, November, December, January, February. For 4 months, the seed will remain dormant in the soil, and the ice will melt. Ice will convert to water, and that water will be washed away from the soil, or it will leach down, and then the crop will come up the month of March or April, and then it will grow up to August. Then it will grow up to August and harvested in August. This is known as winter wheat. So it is of 10 months duration. Why does it take 10 months time? And in India, it takes 5 months time. Even late sown wheat, the farmers which are sowing wheat around 15 January, I have seen, it is also harvested on 15th April. So how much time? 3 months. February, March, April. Yeah. In India, wheat can mature in 3 months. Do you know it?
Yes, sir.
Do you accept it? That
Yes,
wheat
sir.
can mature in 3 months. Starting from 15 January, farmers can do sowing, but the harvesting time is same, almost same. Harvesting time of wheat is almost same, whether you do sowing in the month of November or in the month of December. The maturity period is almost same. It hardly varies from 8 to 10 days. Why it is so in India? And then if you compare with the Europe, the answer lies in the growing degree days. Answer lies in the growing degree days. First, you compare winter wheat of Europe and India. Because their temperatures are low, per day they get less heat unit. In India, our wheat get more heat unit. So the duration is less. Because the total amount of heat required during the growing period from seed to seed is fixed. It is almost fixed. If you give that heat unit in lesser number of days, then it will mature fast. Similarly, late sown wheat and timely sown wheat. When it starts in the month of, say, March, this year temperature were lower, but normally temperatures become very high in the month of March and April. So whatever heat units were required, that can be received by all kind of plants very quickly. So they match their duration. Means they match their maturities. They match their maturity. So now you see the for base GDD is 2700. So it is fixed. You can find the fixed GDD, growing degree days. It is defined as a heat index that can be used to predict when a crop will reach maturity. Each day's growing degree day is calculated. Every day you can calculate by subtracting a reference temperature. What is reference temperature? It varies with the plant species. From the daily mean temperature, we can ignore values less than 0. The reference temperature for a given plant is the temperature below which development slows or stops. Means it is known as base temperature, below which plant will not do photosynthesis or it will not do transpiration, etc. So that temperature is important. And you can calculate growing degree days taking the average of the daily maximum and minimum temperature compared to a base temperature. So you can see base temperature is here taken as 10 degrees centigrade. It is usually the temperature in India, base temperature. As an equation, growing degree days is equal to T max plus T min divided by 2. So every day we record temperature, maximum temperature and minimum temperature. You plus them and then divide it by 2 and subtract the temperature, base temperature. Then you will get growing degree day, and add all these growing degree days. Suppose a plant need 2400 growing degree days. So whenever these growing degree days are completing, the same day it will mature. Is it clear, heat unit or growing degree day to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Now you see one example. With a high of 23, maximum 23, minimum 12 degrees centigrade, and a base temperature is 10, would contribute 7.5. plus 10 divided by 2 minus 10. So in one day, you can get 7.5 heat unit or growing degree days. And you add, and if you know that every day my plant is going to get the same amount of growing degree day. However, it is not possible. Assume you can take a mean figure and then you divide the total growing degree days by this value. So you'll get expected duration of the crop. So thermoperiodism, just 2-3 minutes more, friend. Thermoperiodism is the response of a plant to cycles of temperature fluctuation. Sugar, starch, and content varies with temperature. Cooler temperature promote starch conversion to sugars. Some plants grow better if night temperatures are cooler than the day temperature. This is largely studied by the plant physiologists. It is well studied phenomena by the plant physiologists. They see how this night temperature, day temperature affect the growth of the plants. So this is all known as thermoperiodism. The variation in temperature, diurnal variation in temperature. So how we can manipulate the temperature? Manipulation can happen. Sometimes if it is too low, many times very low temperatures are there. Sometimes very high temperatures are there. So how to manipulate it? And these are the days of climate change, you know. Some now agronomists are thinking to revise the sowing dates of the crop in the light of the changes in temperature. If temperature is coming fast or high temperatures are coming in March, let us advance the wheat sowing in the month of October. People are working on those lines. So alteration in sowing time, we can manipulate the temperature up to some extent. Amount of clay, if you increase the clay content in the soil, the moderation of temperature will be more. If you have more sand in soil, you will have very high or very low temperature. So clay acts as a moderator of temperature. I think students from soil science might be knowing the role of clay in controlling the soil temperature. Can anyone explain how this clay can moderate or can influence the soil temperature? There may be two soils. In one soil you have more clay, in another soil you have less clay. So which soil will moderate temperature more than the other?
Mostly.
Any idea?
More
If you
clay.
don't know, if nobody
More
knows
clay.
it, more clay, definitely. So please see in detail also, just check from Google this effect of clay on soil temperature. This is very important subject, this clay and temperature. Similarly, moisture irrigation, if you have too high or too low temperature, in both cases irrigation is suggested. So if you give irrigation, light irrigation, that up to some extent, it can moderate the temperature. It can change or it can modify the temperature, irrigation. You know, in winter months, if you expect frost, farmers are advised to give a light irrigation just to counteract the ill effect of low temperatures. Similarly, drainage, many times during day temperature, if you have rice nursery and day temperatures are very high and your water is standing in the field, so scalding effect can occur. The rising temperature of water can affect even the rice plant. So in that case, drainage will be useful. So sometimes by doing drainage, we can reduce the soil temperature. Mulching is important in both cases. Mulching can moderate high temperature as well as low temperature. Do you agree to this point?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes.
How
Yes,
many
sir.
are there? How many there are there? I will take attendance now.
Yes, sir.
Intercropping, multi-story cropping, or agroforestry. It can also control the temperature. You know, intercropping, one crop may be taller and shade-loving crop may be smaller. So this smaller crop small height crop can be saved by high temperature. Multi-storied cropping or agroforestry system. Certain grasses, they love to grow under agroforestry system, uh, like panicum grass, and there are some grasses which do better under reduced temperature. So tomorrow we will continue with water. I could not finish this topic today. We'll finish it tomorrow in 10-15 minutes. And tomorrow we meet at what time?
10:30.
10:30 or
10:30.
9:30?
No, no.
9:30.
9:30, sir.
9.
9:30, sir.
So tomorrow is 9:30. I'm very thankful for your kind cooperation. And now it is time for questions. You are free to ask any question on this. Any question on references? Any question on these factors discussed? Anything in your mind that you want to tell, please feel free to tell. I will be happy to answer your questions.
Sir, why the yield of the winter wheat is high?
Yeah, why the yield of the winter wheat is high? This question is very relevant. Normally, the yields of winter wheat are high than the spring wheat. First thing is definitely duration. Duration, and because that wheat takes very long time to mature, and here the wheat matures in half of the time. There it takes double time. Why it takes double time? Because of temperature differences. If they get the same heat unit in 5 months, the wheat of Europe will mature. The first reason is the genetics. Definitely their plant type is different. Our plant type is different. Our wheat is tolerating little higher temperature. Maybe because of high temperature at a time, the respiration rates will also be higher. So in their case, because of temperatures are low, first reason could be that respiration rates are lower. Other is genetics, other is temperature, as I told you, and more important comes the management. Their management may be different because they use more of fertilizer. We need to check the data. Their genotypes may be more responsive to fertilizers. So we need to check the data whether fertilizer use is more in wheat in Europe. Today I'll try to check the data, but definitely in India, if we see the fertilizer use, it is very low, it's still very low in India. So maybe the thing, the rest is your except management, there may be some insect pest and disease, I don't know. In India also, we do not have many, in wheat crop, we are not having many important diseases or pests. Wheat is actually relatively free crop. Only problem of rust in some cases, or otherwise, I never heard major damage by insect pest and disease in wheat crop. So this is all I can guess. If you have anything in your mind, any other answer, you are welcome to share.
Nothing, sir. Thank you, sir.
No.
Thank
This
you.
is
High,
very
sir, high yield is
pertinent
mainly
question.
due to long duration there, sir.
Mainly due to long duration. Yeah, it is possible.
Because of long time to fill the grains. Sir.
Yeah, because temperatures are lower. So
Yes.
grain filling period is extended. Therefore, their yields are large. I agree to it. That is the reason. So actually what happened, one of my friend, I used to have one friend from England, and he was very proud. He was very proud in saying, our wheat yield is double than yours. I said, okay, my friend, I'm happy. But how many time it takes? He said 10 months. I told him, in 10 months, we can produce 6 ton of wheat and 6 ton of rice. So how much it is? 12 tons. So total productivity of the land in 1 year, in our case, is much higher than there. And why this difference, friend? This is mainly because of light. In India, we are very, very fortunate that we are in tropical climate or subtropical climate part. We get sufficient light and we never bother about the light. Light is not our god actually, but in England or in many European countries, they love to see the sun. It is very rare to see the sun in winters. So if sun is out, They are out of their home. It is a festival in many European countries if sun is out in the sky. So any other question? Hello.
No, sir.
No, sir. Now I take your attendance. Abhishek is there. Abhishek, let me end this presentation.